On the sports beat tonight, officials with Sinton ISD confirm one student athlete has tested positive for COVID-19. Athletic Director Coach Michael Trotman says as a result, one of tonight's matches against Tuloso-Midway High School was canceled. He tells us families of both the Sinton High School volleyball and football teams were notified and that the athlete, fellow players on the one team, and at least one coach at this time are now in quarantine. Trotman telling 3 News tonight, quote, "The safety of our staff, the safety of our kids is our top priority, and we're going to do what's right. We're always going to keep that in mind with every decision that we make."